Hey, it's Sean from the Commander's Brew. You know us, the Commander show that emphasizes the brew. We specialize in offbeat decks, and we have a lot of laughs while we're doing so. This week is no different. It's a tribal deck, but what's the tribe? You'll have to watch and find out. Spoiler alert, there really isn't a tribe. It's all the tribes. Changelings, I guess. I teased that we were doing tribeless tribal. If you're a listener to the show, you know I don't love tribal decks. They just don't do it for me. But this is a tribal deck. But who is the tribe? It's kind of no tribe. Changelings? Is that the tribe? The idea for this deck, it was originally going to be Morphon. P.S. That card's name is not Morphon, it's Morophon. I didn't know about that extra O. Now you do. We all learned something today. Anyway, the point I want to make about tribal decks is that there is so much support for tribal cards, tribal decks, things that let you pick a creature type, that there's almost no room for the actual tribe itself. We've got so many changelings to help fill out a deck, but we can make a deck that's almost all changelings and therefore is all tribes, which to me sort of defeats the purpose of a tribal deck. It's a bit of a deck to kind of make a point. We're trying to make a point that there doesn't need to be tribal decks anymore. And so who's the commander of this deck? Take your pick. The first sliver is a great choice. White, blue, black, red, green. Wooburg, it's a 5-color legendary. Sliver, 7/7. It's got Cascade, and creature sliver spells you control have Cascade. Since the bulk of our deck is changelings, which count as slivers, most of our creatures have Cascade. Now, I know that the first sliver draws a bit of table ire, a little bit of a hate tax on the first sliver. People hate sliver decks, so you're going to get a lot of aggression right away. And even if you say it's not a sliver deck, I mean, you'd be lying if you said that because changelings are slivers. Maybe you can say it's a changeling deck, but I don't know if that will get you many favors. We are running a sliver, though. One sliver. So maybe you're not the first sliver. Maybe you're going to be Tazri, Beacon of Unity, 4 and a white for a legendary human warrior, 4/6. Costs 1 less for each creature in your party. You'll remember from the Zendikar days, a party is a wizard, a warrior, a cleric, and a fourth thing, a rogue. Changelings are all those things. So now each card, like a changeling can't be 4 party members. A changeling can be 1 member of a party, but it only takes 4 changelings and you will have every party member. So Tazriel will often be 1 less to cast. And we can pay some mana to look at the top 6 cards and put 2 party members, aka changelings, into our hand. So here's a nice way to get card advantage that isn't directly cascading into cascades. So it's pretty decent to run as Tazri if you hate, if the tables that you run with just hate a sliver deck. Either way, you want to put the other one in the deck no matter how you play this out. So it just really doesn't matter. Just swap one out for the other, slide one into the command zone, put one back in the deck if your table kind of wants you to. So since the deck is all about the changelings, we hardly need any actual tribal members. But before I go into the deck, I just want to kind of highlight how tribal decks have there's this package of cards that every tribal deck runs, and this deck certainly could run them too, but since every tribal deck has to share them, they become pretty expensive. Vanquisher's Banner, it's the 5-mana artifact, choose a creature type. All those creatures get +1/+1, and whenever you cast one of those creatures, draw a card. It would be fantastic here. All changelings are bigger, and we draw cards off of them. Herald's Horn's another one of these artifacts. It's 3. Choose a creature type. The spells of the creature type you chose cost 1 less. It would be amazing here. And at the beginning of the upkeep, look at your top card of your library, and if it's one of those creature types, put it into your hand and reveal it. It's $9, which is down. This card used to be very, very expensive. So and now that it's down to 9, it's probably room for it in budget tribal decks or this changeling deck. But we just don't have the money for Door of Destinies. It's a 4-mana artifact. Choose a creature type. Whenever you cast a spell of the chosen type, put a charge counter on it, and it pumps up the team of that type for +1/+1 for each charge counter. It's kind of like a one-sided coat of arms, 5 generic artifact. Each creature gets +1/+1 for each other creature that shares one type with it. I certainly won't be running that in a changeling deck because doing the math on that would break my brain. I don't even like doing it in a normal tribal deck because I just don't think it's worth the mental equity. It's too hard. Everyone's creatures get pumped and it doesn't count the one that it is, but it counts the other one. Even the reminder text on this stupid thing doesn't make any sense. For example, if 2 goblin warriors and a goblin shaman are on the battlefield, each gets +2/+2. What? And that's because of the goblins. The fact that 2 are warriors and 1's a shaman just makes it even more confusing, if you ask me. Anyway, we're not running either of those, and we certainly aren't dropping $40 on Urza's Incubator. 3 generic for an artifact. Choose a creature type. Creature spells of the chosen type are 2 less to cast. Like Herald's Horn, this can make your deck so cheap. If you've got them, obviously they belong in here, but I just bring them up to illustrate that if you're running a tribal deck, you can fill it with changelings, run these stock tribal cards, and you've got a pretty decent deck that can do some things. And just to be clear, we're not running some of those expensive ones. They're kind of auto-includes, but we are running a boatload of changelings, and 31 of them to be precise. So if we have Tazri as our commander, or we get Tazri out, we can use her ability and probably get 2 changelings every activation. If we're running First Sliver as our commander, again, that's a ton of cascades, big chain of cascades, because if a creature has Cascade, which all of our changelings, aka slivers, do, then if we cast a 5-mana changeling, Sliver, and cascade into a 3-mana changeling, that changeling will also cascade into a smaller one, and it only stops if we hit like a mana rock or something that costs 1 or 2 that isn't a changeling. But if you are running the First Sliver, we are running as one of those 0 mana sorceries. If we're cascading this much, we're going to put a 0 mana spell in here, and the one I chose is Profane Tutor. Normally they want us to suspend it for 1 and a black and wait a couple of turns, but it's basically just a tutor. Look for a card, put it into your hand, but it does have 0 CMC or mana value, so if we cascade with a 1-mana changeling, we will get to do this. I just like it to keep the party going. Let's get another one of our spicier cards. Should we talk about the spicy cards? Should we get into the neat moves? Working on a neat moves. The neat moves come from who are not the changelings. The irony is we don't have a ton of room for cards that aren't changelings. It would be tempting to put one lord of all the major tribes and just be like Lord's Tribal. The problem with that is then you rely on a card like Maskwood Nexus or another card that makes all creatures one type or all the types. But it has to be Maskwood Nexus. It makes all your creatures all the types. But then there's no changelings anymore. We've kind of pushed them out of the deck for all these lords. So we've got to be a bit choosy with who these are. Here's some ones I've chosen, but I encourage you to dig a little deeper and find some that you might like too. I think Magda on the low end is fantastic. Magda Brazen Outlaw, 1 and a red, Dwarf Berserker. Other dwarves get +1/+0, pumps the team, and whenever a dwarf becomes tapped, or a changeling for that matter, you create a treasure token. We also get to sacrifice 5 treasures and search for an artifact or a dragon card, put that onto the battlefield, and then shuffle your library. I want to get to that in a moment, but the team attacks and then generates treasure upon attacking. Other ways we're getting more mana from non-changelings are Mana Weft Sliver. This is the one true sliver actually in the deck. 1 and a green. All sliver creatures you control have tap, add a mana of any color to your mana pool, which is a way to just jump up in mana a ton. Maybe we've got 4 changelings out, maybe we've got 5 mana. We cast a sliver with the 2 mana. Now we've got 4 changelings, which can now all of a sudden tap for mana. It's a way to jump up a lot of mana that our opponents may not see coming. Also, Harabaz Druid, 1 and a green for a 0/1 human druid ally. Not a changeling, but Tazri will find Harabaz Druid in her activation because it's an ally. 0/1, tap to add X mana of any one color, where X is the number of allies you control, aka changelings. This single card has to survive a turn to get at a summoning sickness range, but we can tap and generate 5-6 mana off of this. Pretty good. I've highlighted a bunch of cards, a bunch of ways to get a lot more mana, because we've got some changelings that care about having a bunch of mana. Some of the changelings, admittedly, straight duds, just 3 1s for 2 or a 1/1 for 1, but they're in there for the beef, for the bulk, for the tribe. Some of them, though, the MVPs, Mirror Entity, MVP of the whole deck, 2 and a white for a changeling, 1/1. You can pay X. Until end of turn, creatures you control have base power and toughness XX and gain all creature types. That part, okay, wait on this one too. I'm asking you to wait on a few things. Magda's ability to sack artifacts to look for a dragon or an artifact, and Mirror Entity's ability to turn creatures you control into all creature types for X. X is allowed to be 0, but if you do, then all your creatures become 0/0s, which is not a good idea, but 1 is fine. Anyway, Mirror Entity, we can attack with the team of changelings, Magna's on the board, get a ton of treasure, pump the team up to like a 10, each is a 10/10 or an 11/11. It is possible to just end the game on the spot. If you can attack with enough changelings, you can just totally eliminate a player or 2 with Mirror Entity, especially if they don't think to block them all. They should. Chameleon Colossus is another great mana sink changeling, 2 green, 4/4, protection from black. Forgot about that, but that could come in handy. 2 green, give it +X till end of turn, where X is its power. 8/8, 16/16. It gets out of hand pretty quickly. And then a big one is Shape Sharer. 1 and a blue, changeling, 1/1. And for 2 and a blue, target Shapeshifter, which is all the changelings, become a copy of target creature until your next turn. We can attack with Magda. We can attack, we've got our Mana Weft Sliver out. Maybe we've left our Harabaz Druid back so we can tap the Harabaz Druid for a 7 mana. Shapesharer allows us to just cherry pick what's on the board that would be amazing. Oh, I'm gonna make my, after you've declared blocks, I'll make some that are blocked into big honking creatures to just destroy your stuff. Maybe the ones that get through, I will turn into ninjas that have abilities when I hit you with combat damage. Heck, I'll just turn them into big chonky things and just outright kill you with a Shapesharer. Fantastic card. Those are some MVP changelings. Now, another thing we get to do if most of our deck is all the creature types is we get a surprising amount of one-sided wraths. This is something I didn't see coming, but we've got access to Wakening Sun's Avatar. It's heavy on the mana cost, 5 white. It's a dinosaur avatar of 7/7, and when it ETBs, if you cast it from your hand, destroy all non-dinosaur creatures, aka everybody else's stuff. Here's where I wanted to remind you of Mirror Entity, right? We can, in case we have 1 or 2 of our key creatures out there that we're like, oh, I don't want this creature to die from my one-sided wrath. You know what? Just hit up your Mirror Entity. Now they're all dinosaurs. Rakdos the Showstopper. A little more chaotic, a little less reliable, but twice the fun. 4 black, red, demon, flying trample, 6/6. When he enters the battlefield, flip a coin for each creature that isn't a demon, devil, or imp. I don't need to tell you that all of our stuff is a demon, a devil, and an imp, and we destroy every creature where we get a flip of tails. So, okay, we won't kill. It's not a full one-sided wrath, but it's a lot of fun to do. Thundercloud Shaman, 3 red, giant shaman. When this ETBs, it deals damage equal to the number of giants you control to each non-giant creature. Again, our whole team is safe. None of their team is safe. I mean, maybe they've got a giant. Maybe they've got a dinosaur. I mean, maybe they've got all giants. If they got a dinosaur tribal deck, if you're up against a Gishath, maybe this won't work. The Awakening Suns won't work too well, but Thundercloud should do fine. And if we don't have our mirror entity out to make everything into a changeling, we've got a Meeboid changeling. It's a 1 and a blue changeling for 1/1 that you can tap to make target creature all types until end of turn, or make target creature lose all types till end of turn. This is also a way to get around if your opponents have that one straggler dinosaur. You're like, well, I don't want you to have a dinosaur, so I'll take away dinos from you and destroy all the non-dinos. Really useful card. Here's a couple heavy hitters in the deck. Not creatures, but just powerful spells to keep things rolling. Grim Captain's Call. You want to talk value? How about 2 and a black for a sorcery? Return a pirate card from your graveyard to your hand. Then do the same for a vampire, a dinosaur, and a merfolk. We do have a dinosaur, Awakening Sun's avatar, but we also have all of our changelings. So this is a 3-mana sorcery to bring 4 creatures back from our graveyard to our hand. Oh, is that not good enough for you? You don't want them to come to your hand? How about Thwart the Grave? It's 4 black for a sorcery, but it does cost 1 less for each party member. So potentially black. Return any creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, and 1 cleric, rogue, wizard, or warrior from your graveyard to the battlefield. You get 2 creatures from your grave to the battlefield. 1 is unconditional. 1 has to be a changeling, basically. That usually means any 2 creatures, but again, maybe that thunderstorm giant, thundercloud shaman comes back as our unconditional one, and we bring an actual changeling back for the other one to make that giant count bigger, to get another one-sided board wipe over and over. This deck's cool. Okay, you still thinking about Magda? We got all those treasures. We're like, well, what are we getting as far as like dragons or artifacts? How about Lathless Dragon Queen? 4 red, flying 6/6 dragon. And whenever another non-token dragon enters the battlefield under your control, you make a 5/5 dragon creature with flying. And 1 in a red, dragons you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. It pumps the whole team. Casting little tiny changelings make 5/5 flying tokens along with it all. This is a very powerful card in the deck. Magda can tutor Lathless up. If we're running a first sliver, all of those casts, they'll all bring multiple changelings. We can get a huge team of dragons onto the battlefield off of 1 creature if we cascade nicely. Fantastic card. Great in the deck. I mean, this next card is not as fantastic. This is Gravespawn Sovereign. This is our zombie representative. I didn't want to go for a zombie that just gives the team +1/+1. I didn't think that was good enough. But for 4 black, you get a 3/3. And you can tap 5 untapped zombies you control to put a creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. I mean, you're probably going to tell me that the Scarab God just does this way better. I mean, yeah, you're not wrong. Scarab God's very good. You don't have to tap 5 things. But this lets us tap 5 creatures instead of paying mana. So that can be pretty useful. But in any case, we're getting the creature right from a graveyard to our battlefield. And this is from any graveyard, our opponents as well. Something to think about. So, did you notice that most of the big, beefy, lord-type creatures are big, expensive? Lathless is a 6-mana spell. Awakening Sun's Avatar is, I think, an 8-mana spell. Well, guess what? We've got Pyre of Heroes in the deck. It's a 2 generic artifact. For 2 and a tap, you get to sack a creature, search your library for a creature card that shares a creature type, but it has to cost 1 more mana value. This is like a pod. This is like Birthing Pod, but it's only within 1 tribe. But with changelings, this becomes legit Birthing Pod. Has to be a sorcery. Any little medium-sized changeling can go up to those really big changelings. We've got a couple of medium non-changelings. I didn't go over all of them, but we get to 5, we're getting Lathless. We're getting that zombie. We're getting whatever we need to just ruin our opponent's day, because that's what Commander's all about. You want to ruin your opponent's day. Unless your opponent is one of our wonderful Discord participants. I'm going to shout out the people who helped me put this deck together. Jamon, Groove Chicken, Mondo, Chiefy, Micah Eternity's Crafter, Loki Dragon 87, Neomaxis, Papadio, Pips Don't Lie, and Gee Pizza. Thank you to everybody. We couldn't do this without you. So grateful for your help. And also, while we were putting this deck together, there's always a few ideas that you just don't get to run. So I want to highlight a couple of things that came up that are really cool but didn't make it into the deck. This is Skirk Fire Marshal. 3 red for a goblin, protection from red, and it's a 2/2. Tap 5 untapped goblins you control, aka changelings. Skirk Fire Marshal deals 10 damage to each creature and each player. Skirk Fire Marshal has protection from red, so this won't die from taking the 10 damage. I will take 10 damage. My opponents will take 10 damage. Will that kill some of my opponents? I hope so. I mean, if this is a win, this is an amazing win. It might also destroy the whole team. Oh, wait, unless you run Spare from Evil, 1 on a white instant. Creatures you control gain protection from non-human creatures until end of turn. Skirk Fire Marshal does the damage, and it is a non-human. So my creatures take no damage, your creatures take 10, and so do the players. And if I've got another 5 creatures on board, I'm going to tap 5 more and do another 10 to everybody. That's 20. There's a chance this causes a draw, but I don't hate that. There's something rewarding about just ending the game in a draw. I don't know. Maybe that's my anarchistic nature of it all. It's time for the budget report. TCGPlayer mid about $94, and the most expensive cards. Surprising to find the most expensive one, Shapesharer. It's a $12 card. It's the one that lets other changelings become a copy of any creature until end of turn. Yeah. Second most expensive, Awakening Sun's Avatar. That's $7. Didn't know that was so expensive, but I guess in a Dino tribal deck, and there's a lot of cool dinosaur commanders out there, so it doesn't surprise me. There's a lot of dinosaur commander decks, and they all want this card. So it's $7. It's a mythic from Ixalan. Doesn't seem like it should be that much, but here we are. And then, haven't talked about this card yet. It's $5. Shared Animosity. 2 and a red for an enchantment. Whenever a creature you control attacks, it gets +1/+0 until end of turn for each other attacking creature that shares a creature type with it. I don't need to tell you that this makes our whole team quite large on attacks. Do we need that sort of thing? Maybe. I mean, I can imagine a world where like a lot of the changelings are just kind of real losers, like just some dumb creatures that don't do a lot. So pumping them up to like an 8/3 seems decent to me. I mean, I say they don't do a lot, but they all have a place. They're all valuable in my heart. I love you, changelings. So there's the deck. What's the tribe? Changelings? There is no tribe. I don't know. What is a tribal deck anyway? This deck's a lot of fun. I haven't included all the lords, all the ones I could find, but if you've got a cool lord, like a one of that would just really go off in a deck like this, ideally one that costs more than 3. I'm not opposed to a cheap one, but like these big splashy ones make it pretty neat. Bonus points if you can think of an obscure tribal one. I got to admit, this is a tough thing to search for on the internet using Scryfall or something like that, because you can't just type in Lord or who helps zombies. You got to think about like, okay, zombies, angels, spirits, like you've got to come up with the tribe. So I'm sure I missed a cool one, and if you can think of one, let me know, please. I'd love to hear it. Come back next week for another cool deck tech. Bye.